The group stage is officially over at the FIFA World Cup, and I just want to start by saying that this has been the greatest group stage of my entire life. As of an hour ago recording, there were two teams that just needed a draw to get through, and they made it maybe the most entertaining ending to a group stage that we could have got, with Austria and Algeria taking the lead within, a minute or two of stoppage time being left, and then Austria going straight down the pitch and then scoring a goal to both send them through to the knockout stages. I'll start this video by saying that I think this is going to be the greatest World Cup of our lifetime. I think you've got a perfect storm of a bunch of different things, which start with the stars have shown up. Your Mbappes, your Haalands, your Messis have shown up to this World Cup and made it a spectacle. The second thing is the crowds in the stadiums have looked fantastic in the U.S. The third thing is the host nations have shown up. The U.S., Mexico, and Canada all have done their part to show why all three of them are deserving to be host nations. And then finally, you've had drama all over the place, and you've had special moments with Cabo Verde, and you've had special moments with the Algeria-Austria game like I was just talking about. And I don't think I can remember a World Cup in my lifetime where I've experienced that level of stardom mixed with drama and atmosphere to this extent. And now I get to briefly show you guys how dumb I am, and we can go back through what my original predictions were. I had Portugal winning it all. I will tell you now, I don't think I still have them doing that, but I will quickly show you how I kind of saw the group stage going, and you can call me an idiot, and then we'll move on into predicting the rest of the group stage as almost a rebound. Okay, now we get to call me an idiot. We're going to look at the groups, and then we'll kind of see where I land. And then after that, we'll get into fixing my bracket and actually giving you the 100% guaranteed to be true predictions for the round of 32 and on. Starting with Group A, got Mexico at the top right, the rest wrong. South Africa, great storyline. We'll touch on them a little bit later, but the Czechia really disappointed me. I thought the European team was going to do better. They did not. Moving into Group B, 100% correct. I know ball. Thank you, Switzerland, for giving me a heart attack in the first game that I was at. If you haven't seen that video, I did a whole vlog. You can see me in full face paint. It was great. Group C, messed up the top two, and I also had Scotland going through, so yikes. Group D, same kind of yikes moment for Turkey. I thought they were going to really challenge with the U.S. for the first game, or for the top of the group, and I thought that was going to come down to the last game. Turkey sucked, but the U.S. were great, and Australia, big plus for them, and then Paraguay getting through with a red card, impressive. All right, now moving on to E, F, G, and H. In Group E, I had the Ivory Coast topping the group with Ecuador in second, and then Germany in third. Oh, I tried to get fancy with it. I got too fancy with it. It kind of went how everyone expected it to. Germany in first, Ivory Coast in second, and then Ecuador in third. Barely scraping through with a last game win against against Germany. What a great moment. Group F went exactly how I had it. Netherlands in first, Japan in second, Sweden in third. Group J, I had Belgium finishing in first, followed by Egypt, then Iran and New Zealand. That's exactly how it went. Good set of groups for me there. In Group H, Spain, followed by Uruguay, one of the dark horses that sucked. They were awful. Saudi Arabia and then Cabo Verde. That's the best storyline of the entire group stage. Cabo Verde making it through is just a phenomenal story. We'll touch on them when we talk about those round of 32 games. So they were the next set that, I got way wrong. And then we move to the final set, which is I, J, K, and L. I had France, Norway, Senegal, Iraq. That's exactly how it went down, and all three of those teams advanced. J, Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan is what I had. Obviously, 2 and 3 get flipped. Austria finish in second. They take on Spain. And then Group K, I had faith in Portugal, and they let me down. Colombia have looked really good in the group stages. I think they are a dark horse contender. They're going to have a really good shot at this whole thing, which is kind of crazy to say. Almost playing home games in every single match. But yeah, anyways, flip the top two, and you got it right. DR Congo, great storyline. They're also through. And then the last group, England, Croatia, Ghana. I actually think that this was a really entertaining group for what I thought it was going to be, and it did exactly end like that. But Ghana really good defensively. I wasn't expecting them to make this next round, and they did. And then for the teams, obviously, that I had going through, for the third place teams, I had Sweden, Korea Republic let me down, Senegal, Germany, Scotland, Saudi Arabia, and then Bosnia. So I didn't hit the third place games right, and that's okay. That's okay. Alrighty, and now the moment you've all been waiting for, the part where I get to clip myself up again after this is inevitably wrong or right. No, you know what? This is going to be 100% right. Probably not. Anyways, let's move on to the bracket challenge, the second chance bracket, because that's what we all needed. We all needed a second chance. I don't think anybody had some of those storylines going through. And we'll start at the very top with Germany versus Paraguay. Paraguay, what a story from getting smacked off the park against the U.S. in their opening match to getting to this point is phenomenal. And they deserve all the credit in the world for that level of bounce back. They were even down a man in a game and still made it to this point. It is unfortunate that they finished third because that ultimately means that they played Germany. And Germany, while they did lose that last game, it didn't mean as much for them, and I still think they're a juggernaut in this tournament. So they're going to take down Paraguay and move on, which they will be playing against one of France or Sweden. And I'm not even going to play around with this. Sweden had a good game against Tunisia. France are by and far the best team in the tournament so far on paper, but also just have played the best. Mbappe is an unreal World Cup talent. I think when it's all said and done with his career, I think we will recognize him as the greatest World Cup player of all time. What he's doing is nothing short of unreal. It's stupid. He's got 16 World Cup goals in 17 games. And in this last game where everyone was like, oh, well, he's just going to take all the shots, he assisted twice. He's fucking unreal. He's unreal. And so that's going to be the one. The game that kicks off the entire round of 32 is South Africa versus Canada. Canada get Alphonso Davies back, and South Africa have been a great story, and I probably shouldn't underestimate them. There's just something about the host nations having a better fan base, and I just think that Canada are going to show up for this game at SoFi, and they just have more talent, and I think in these games you need to have more talent, and I think Canada do, and they will move on to that next round of 16 game against Houston. First time Canada has gotten a point, then first time they've gotten a win in a World Cup. Now they get their first ever knockout round win, all in the same tournament. It'll be a success story for Canada that their fans will remember forever. Now moving on to the game in Monterrey, the Netherlands versus Morocco. I think this is going to be the best game of the round of 32. The Netherlands are scorching hot, and Morocco are the best team in Africa, but also were pretty good in this round too. I think it's the hardest one to call. I don't really want to make a decision here, but I'm going to have to. And throughout this round, the group stages, I thought the Netherlands were maybe the best team. I really did. And their composure and, honestly, Virgil van Dijk makes them such a dominant force. And Cody Gakpo, whenever he puts on a Netherlands jersey, he's unreal. And I'm going to take them to take down Morocco. Morocco showed some signs against Brazil where they didn't put them away, and I think that a better Brazil side would have beat them. And I think that this Netherlands side is a little more polished, and Somerville off the bench has just been that extra spark that they've needed, and they move on. Now the next game, Toronto. In Toronto, CR7 versus the third place team in that England group. Or I'm sorry, no, they were second place group. Second place, sorry. Croatia. Portugal versus Croatia is a great game. Modric versus Ronaldo. The battle of the old heads. I haven't been impressed with Portugal. I really haven't. But I think that this game in Toronto, I think it favors Portugal just a little bit. I think the age is starting to show more in Croatia than it is in Portugal. And I think that midfield three, they got to get it going at some point. But I think that Bruno Fernandes and Cristiano Ronaldo will be enough to get them over the line, heading into what will be a showdown of two of the best nations in the world. But the next game is in Los Angeles, and it is Spain versus Austria. Austria obviously had that crazy storyline today. Their road stops here, let's be honest. Spain are a dominant force. I've been not that impressed with them, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think they've been a little mid. But I don't know if it's just because they dominate possession and they just kind of churn out wins. And with Lamine Yamal, they have such an X factor that I think that, especially against other European competition, they've already got that whole thing figured out. Doesn't it kind of feel like they have all the European competition figured out? And so that they will just kind of go into this game, take care of business, and then have a monster showdown against Ronaldo in Dallas. Lamine Yamal versus CR7 in Dallas. Amazing. Can't wait for that one. But San Francisco Stadium, this is where the U.S. get off the mark July 1st. It's a Wednesday. U.S. play Bosnia. U.S. have the more talent. U.S. have played better in the group stages. Bosnia didn't really convince me in their group. I think that they are a set-piece reliant team, which is one thing the U.S. will have to look out for. I think the home crowd favors the U.S., and I think the U.S. take it, and they move on to the round of 16. Yeah, they were just really impressive to me. I thought that all the things that they did in the group stage were really, really good. And even in a game against Turkey, who had everything to play for, and the U.S. played their backups, 9 of 11 players rotated, they still put up 2 goals. And I think that's ultimately what's going to take them over the line. I think they can score multiple goals and really get off the mark. And they will move on to Seattle on July 6th, where they will be taking on either one of Belgium or Senegal. Man, Belgium looked like shit, didn't they? Really took up until that last game and really the second half to get going. And Senegal are a really good team. They just were in the group of death. And it showed when they beat Iraq 5-0 or 5-1 or whatever it was. I think Belgium are going to get spanked in Seattle. I really do. Senegal, tough travel for this one, right? To get across the country. But Belgium really shocking to me. I thought they were shit. I thought they were really shit, actually. And I just don't see a world where, unless Jeremy Doku is the best player on the pitch by a country mile, that they will get over the line. Lukaku looks old. Kevin De Bruyne looks old. And I think Senegal just have probably the best team in Africa outside of Morocco. And I see them going through, which sets up a Seattle showdown where the U.S. will take on Senegal in a rematch of that friendly that they played earlier in the summer. And then in Houston, Brazil versus Japan, another great matchup. Obviously, I talked very highly about the Dutch, and I have talked very highly about Brazil. I think Brazil figured some stuff out, putting Matheus Cunha in at the 9, and then Japan, just the dark horse favorites. They always are, and this is a tough matchup. In Houston, it's going to be a Brazil-heavy crowd. This is a tough one to call, just similar to that Morocco-Holland game. And I think in this one, I'm going to do the reverse. And I'm going to take Brazil to knock off Japan. I think talent at the end of the day overcomes their continuity. And I think that with Cunha in the squad and with the way the Vinicius Jr. player, I didn't mention him in the star player segment. He's been so fucking good for Brazil. Yeah, Brazil move on in this one, and they head to MetLife to take on one of either the Ivory Coast or Norway. Norway played their fate when they took this route instead of playing their starters against France. And I think it's going to pay out for them. I have been nothing short of impressed by what Norway is doing. And I think this is a strikers tournament. And they gave Holland a week off. And now he gets to go play in Dallas in a climate-controlled room against a team that honestly struggled to score goals more than they should have, in my opinion. I thought the Ivory Coast, they were good. They were really good, but I genuinely believe that they're going to struggle in this group, kind of similar to the way they struggled against Germany. And I just think that the team with the better striker is going to win this one. And Diamante's been fun. I just think that Norway's got enough stuff to at least neutralize him a little bit. But they don't have any. Nobody's got an answer for Holland. Nobody's got an answer for Holland. And so Norway move on to take on Brazil in New York. Mexico City is Mexico versus Ecuador. Ecuador squeak in a last-second win against Germany, and Mexico dominated group play. 9 points for the first time ever. Didn't concede a goal, and they get to play at the Azteca. I'm saying all these things, and I know that we have a pretty pro-Mexican crowd, and I really want to take Mexico, but I think Ecuador is built for knockout stage football. I just think they do. And I wasn't overly convinced with Mexico in their first 2 games. Their third game was better, but those guys aren't going to start because that was the bench. And they're going to go back to their first 2 games, and those guys really struggled to score goals against opposition that wasn't very good. And I think Ecuador, riding momentum, are one of the only teams that understands altitude, and they're going to beat Mexico at the Azteca. And that's where it's going to end for Mexico. They're going to be the only host nation not to make it past the round of 32. And that might be bold because of the way we saw Ecuador play, but this feels like a game that it's going to end 1-0, and I think Ecuador might get it. I think they have the best player on the pitch in Moises Caicedo, and I just feel like that's where it's going to head. And then in Atlanta, we're going to have England versus the DR Congo, and the DR Congo have been very impressive to me. England, kind of underwhelming, which is funny to say for a team that finished with 7 points. Like, they weren't that great. I think they found something late here with Rashford starting, and I think Bellingham's been unreal. Another star player that's just played great. Same with Kane. 3 goals. Kane and Bellingham have been England's star power, and I think it'll be just enough to take out the Congo, but I think it's going to be a tight game. Like I said, England haven't really impressed me, but I think talent at the end of the day is what's going to get them over the line, take them one step closer. And then, wow, I think we can speed run this section a little bit. Argentina are going to go right to a semis, is what it feels like. Taking on the best storyline in the sport. It's going to be up to Vicinha to stop Messi, and I don't see that happening. I'm going to keep it short and sweet here. Great storyline. One of the greatest storylines in World Cup history is this Cabo Verde team making it to the round of 16. But Argentina are just one of the best teams in the world, and Messi 6 goals in 3 games. Came off the bench of this one, still scored. Ridiculous stuff. Which then takes us to Dallas, where Australia will take on Egypt. I think Egypt have looked pretty bad in transition. And I thought that them getting first was going to be the best thing that could have happened to them. Yeah, yikes. Australia really impressed me. Really impressed me. The only loss they had was to a U.S. team that really was just firing on all cylinders. I think Australia sit off the ball, and I think that they hurt Egypt in the way that most teams would off the counter. And I think Australia is going to win, which is going to set up a rematch of the 2022, I think it was the round of 16, where Argentina played Australia. And it was close. It was real close. I think it came down to extra time. But I think Australia just edged at Egypt here. Final 2 games, Swiss versus Algeria. I have Swiss bias here. So I'm going to take Switzerland to win. I think they are the better team with the better talent. Algeria didn't impress me until today, if I'm being completely honest with you. Jordan aren't very good, so it's hard to really take their win with much. It's kind of similar to Austria for me. They've got talent. They're Mila's dark horse. I just think Switzerland started to figure some stuff out with Manzambi and what's his name? I can't remember his name. It's okay. But with Manzambi, they figured some stuff out, and better striker wins games in these tournaments, and Bolo's been one of the best World Cup strikers in Swiss history. So, taking them. And then in Kansas City, Colombia versus Ghana. Ghana, the team that has honestly been my biggest surprise. I just didn't even have them going into the next round. And then Colombia, dark horse favorite. I'm taking Colombia. Ghana, I think the voodoo magic kind of wears off, and ultimately that leads to a matchup where we'll go now top to bottom. Or bottom to top, sorry. And we'll go with the teams that we just went with. Switzerland versus Colombia. I wasn't really impressed with Switzerland. I've been really impressed with Colombia, and I think Colombia take it. We're going to speed run this next section a bit. Argentina versus Australia. Messi. Which sets up a South American quarterfinal in Kansas City. We got Mexico City and the Azteca hosting Ecuador versus England. Altitude could be a big thing. England have really struggled against teams with low blocks. Could this be Ecuador's chance to steal something against England? I'm going to go with no, because I don't think they score enough goals, and I think England go through. New York, Brazil versus Norway. I like I said, I thought that Brazil was going to figure it out towards the end here. In Norway, dark horse team of the tournament. Holland versus Cunha and Vinny and all the guys. Odegaard. I mean, it's just match made in heaven for a nice day, July 5th after July 4th at MetLife. And I'm going to... this is so tough. I'm going to go Brazil. I'm going to go Brazil because I want to see Brazil-England. I really want to see Brazil-England, and I'm going to use my bias here to take that. Here comes the U.S. versus Senegal. July 6th in Seattle. We saw how pro-Seattle crowd was for the U.S. We've seen the U.S. play Senegal. Senegal lost to Norway, and I think the U.S. and Norway, in my opinion, are pretty similar in terms of where they're at in dark horse scale. And I'm going to use my bias here again, and I'm going to go with the U.S. And they make it to a quarterfinals, which is ultimately a success for the U.S. I'd be pretty happy with that. And then we move on to the round of 16 matchup, like I said, CR7 versus Lamine Yamal. Bruno Fernandes versus Pedri. It's tough. Both teams haven't looked as good as I thought they would. I had Portugal winning the whole thing in my last one. And Spain have looked pretty one-dimensional without Nico Williams on the other side of Yamal. Uruguay really made Spain look pretty poor for a lot of that game. Oh, it's so tough. I'm going to stick with my guns. I think Portugal figure it out and knock off the young gun and send him home packing in Dallas. And Cristiano Ronaldo takes on the United States of America in Los Angeles on July 10th. Going into Canada versus the Netherlands, like I said, great story for Canada. They make it this far. Netherlands beat them pretty comfortably. And then probably one of the games of the round of 16, Germany versus France. France obviously flying high after beating Sweden. Germany beating Paraguay. France move on. Germany haven't, like I said, their front line just doesn't really do it for me. Which sets up a matchup between France and the Netherlands. Woo-wee! Mbappe versus Gakpo. That's what you all wanted to hear. The Netherlands are always one of those teams where they get to a point like this and then they lose in extra time to a team that's just slightly better than them. And I think they lose to France ultimately, and France move to a semifinals, where it is now looking like they are going to play one of Portugal or the US of A. Which Dylan bias am I going to take? Am I going to take my US bias or my CR7 and Bruno bias with Portugal? I don't know. I really don't know. This is so tough. In the comments, let me know what you would do. If you had this matchup, do you think the U.S. could compete? I think the U.S. compete. 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 And they beat Portugal. And they head to a semifinal. Everyone, I know what the comments are going to be. You stupid Yank. You dumb Yank. You don't know football, Yank. Just wait until they're in a semifinal. Anyways, moving on to the other quarterfinal matchup that I wanted to see, Brazil versus England. Brazil in Miami, home team. England struggled with the weather in July. Kane, voodoo against him. I honestly think that Vinny's just figured it out. And I think that it'll be tight. It'll be contested. I think that Harry Kane is going to get, not neutralized, but I think it's a much harder battle for him to go up against Gabriel. And while I'm suspect on Brazil's fullbacks, I think ultimately it won't matter. I think in games that are tight, I'm going to take Brazil just to edge this one and move on to the semifinals, where they will either be taking on one of Argentina or Colombia. I really like Colombia. I don't think lightning strikes twice for this Argentina team. I think they're too reliant on Messi this time. And the question is, when do I have them going out? I think that because they've had such a soft run in this tournament, people will immediately look at this Colombia team against Argentina and go, well, Messi, of course, and Argentina are going to win this. And I think we saw it a little bit in their qualifying. Colombia's fucking good. And I think that they knock off Messi and Argentina. This is the only other team I think they can match them kind of bone for bone, will for will. And like I said, I just think there's a certain level of iron sharpening iron where Argentina just haven't had that yet. Like, think about the group that they had. They had Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. They're going to play Cabo Verde in the first round. Then they're going to play Australia. They haven't played a good side, like a really good side, in way too long. And I think that's going to catch up to them. I think it's going to make them just slightly complacent. And that's where they get knocked off, is the quarterfinal. And Messi goes out here. So the two greatest of all time, Messi and Ronaldo, get knocked out by Colombia and the U.S. Of course that's going to be right. Of course it's going to be right. Which leads us to a semifinals where Brazil takes on Colombia. The battle of the beautiful dancers. I don't know what to call it. This is going to be a great game. I think this is where the road ends. I can't believe that if you had told me that I was going to pick Brazil in my redo bracket, I would have called you insane. But after looking at it, I just feel like they're gonna. There's something about this Brazil team with Ancelotti and Vini and Cunha that makes me believe in them. And I think that they're figuring it out game after game. And I think that when the games get tough, they've got leaders and they've got a spark. And I think that that's going to get them to a final. I'm probably going to be wrong, but I just like it. And on the other side, in the greatest U.S. tournament ever, they're going to take on France. And the U.S. are going to lose to France. Let's be honest. I'm being a little giddy here, putting the U.S. where I got them. I'm hoping that Portugal kind of get, or Spain, too much pressure and whatever. But France are by far, in my opinion, the best team in this tournament because they're just so well-rounded. They have a little bit of defensive woes to them, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, and this is where ultimately I'm going to have my winner here, France versus Brazil, this game comes down to talent. And when I look at that France front line of Doué, Mbappe, and Dembele, I think world class. And I think that to an extent with Cunha and Vinny and Ryan or whoever, Rafinha if he's healthy then. But I just don't think anyone's close right now to France because of how much attacking talent they have. And when these games get down to your talent versus my talent, France's talent has the best in the world. And Mbappe is the main reason why. And I think that this is what's going to cement Kylian Mbappe as the greatest World Cup player of all time. He's going to win the Golden Boot. He's going to win the Golden Ball. And he's going to win his second World Cup in 3 tries. And the try that he missed was a finals appearance. But that's it. Went a little bit longer than I thought I was. It's going to take me a little bit to edit, so it might come out after that Canada game. Sorry if it does, but it's been really cool getting to talk about the World Cup. I think this is, like I said, the greatest World Cup of my lifetime. And I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Obviously, my bracket's guaranteed to be right, so don't even question me there. But what do you guys think is going to happen in this World Cup? Do you think that it's the storyline of the stars? Is there an upset in the making somewhere in here? Or is it going to play out where Messi just wins it? I'm not sure. But you guys let me know in the comments what you're thinking. I've been Dylan from the C.O.C Network. If you aren't currently subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. We have World Cup content coming out every single day. So whether you like me, you hate me, or you like my podcast hosts, let us know. And until the next video, I'll see you then. Peace.